Factor the expression completely. Begin by factoring out the lowest power of each common factor. So this is factoring a variable expression, and what we're going to do is look at the variable components of the polynomial. The smallest or lowest power in this case is -1/2. And so when we factor out x to the -1/2 power, really what we're doing is we're dividing. For example, the first one is x to the -1/2 power, and I would divide by x to the -1 power, which is simply going to be equal to 1. So in this case, when I factor out x to the -1/2 power, this first term is now simply going to be 12. Then we're going to add to that the next term, and let's look at that. That's going to have a 7 in it, and we're going to multiply that by the factored component. So I'm going to use the same principle that I just used, and I'm going to look at x to the 1/2 power, and I divide that by x to the -1/2 power. And when I do that, I end up with x to the -1 power. I'm sorry, next to the 1 power. And the reason we do that is because when we divide common bases or like bases, we're going to subtract the exponents. And that means that I end up with x to the 1/2 minus -1/2, which is the same as x to the 1/2 plus 1/2, which is equal to x to the first power. And so now I have 7 times x. And then what I'm going to do is look at the third term, which is x to the 3/2 power, and I'm going to use the same technique. So we'll go ahead and we'll start with x to the 3/2 power over x to the -1/2 power. And when I go ahead and do this component, I'll end up with x squared. Simply stated, that's because x to the 3/2 minus a -1/2 will be x to the 4/2 or x squared. So now when I do this, I end up with a quadratic, which is going to be factorable, more than likely. So I'm going to rewrite it in descending order of the exponents, noting that this right here can be rewritten as 1 over the square root of x. Now, let's look at the polynomial, x squared plus 7x plus 12. I know that I'm going to factor that. X squared, there's no leading coefficient, so I put an x here and here. Now I'm going to look at the factors of 12, positive 12, that when I add them together, I will get positive 7. The only possibilities for this are plus 3 and plus 4. And now I have completely factored the expression using positive exponents.